Hi everybody, this is Amanda Gonzalez. I'm a school psychologist and I work in an elementary school, and I just wanted to make a little video, sort of an informational video, kind of slash tutorial, I guess, of how I make some visual boards for my students. I love to make visual boards for students and teachers to use in my school building. I find that they are so helpful. And one of the things I like to do too is try to make visual boards that are kind of smaller scale so the students can easily take it and use it throughout the building when they're in special, recess, lunch. And I feel like teachers always find it really helpful as well because they're able to also sort of reinforce the skills that I'm working with my students on when I have them for counseling, in our lunch bunch groups or one-on-one sessions. So I wanted to share how I take a resource like this and turn it from this into something like this that's sort of like a little book resource that the kids can easily take and use throughout their day. So basically, to make the end result, some materials that you need, you're going to want to make sure that you have a glue stick, some scissors that you can cut things out if you need to cut, pecs or whatever it might be, or kind of cut out the pages, because as you can see on this one, when it printed, it sort of printed with a bigger white border on the bottom. So what I did was I sort of cut it down to make it a little smaller so it would fit the file folder, and it could also be more the size that I wanted so that it wasn't too big. When I use the file folders, I always try to find the ones that are sort of long all the way to the top, or as much to the top as they can be. Sometimes if you have the ones that have like the little divots in the middle, it can kind of make it a little bit harder when you're trying to put together the visual board, because it sort of makes the page that you're gluing down kind of overlap onto the other side, so it can be a little tricky. But these are the ones that I like to use primarily, and I feel like file folders are so helpful when you're making visual boards for your kids, because it's an easy way for the adult to store. If they have pecs on them, you can easily store the pecs on the inside with Velcro and kind of find the pieces easily so you're not searching. I always think that's the worst part sometimes of token boards and visual boards, is when you have to search for all the pecs. Maybe later on too, I can share with you some simple visual boards and simple token boards that I've used that sort of minimize the amount of pecs that you need, because trust me, I've been there. I've done that, and I know the struggle when you're trying to find like the math pec during math time and it's missing and you're trying to substitute it with something else. So but that's another story for another day. So what I do for this is I will take the page that I'm looking for the front cover, and I glue that. So again, I always cut it down and size it, and then try to get it as close to the edge as possible when I'm gluing it. And then once that side is down, you can then, go ahead and glue down your other pieces. Something else I've learned through trial and error is you definitely want to make sure before you glue the other pieces, always double check and make sure that it's facing the right way and that it's in the right order that you want. Sometimes I've glued the second page down, and when I went back to this was technically the back and this was the second page, and I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a huge ordeal. You can easily make do with it, but that's something that I'm also working on, is letting things go, and things don't always have to look perfect, but again, we're working on it. Baby steps. So what I did for this resource was I glued everything down and cut it out. A tip of advice is when you're gluing the inside of pages, you want to make sure that you do leave some space on the middle kind of bind of the file folder, because if you glue it too close to the edge and your plan is to laminate this, when you laminate it, it's going to crease it, it's going to really kind of mess it up and make it hard and sort of shift it, and it might ruin the activity after you spent so much time making it. So again, I've been there and I've learned through trial and error. And then on this one, I do have a back page. This one, it came out a little smaller because as I was putting this together, then I had the idea of including this resource. So I had to jump back on my computer, and I made it quickly, and I didn't know how big to make it match the other pages. So this is sort of like my prototype, but I'm gonna go back later on and sort of fix it so that it matches the same size as the other pages. But my end intent for this is I'm going to be laminating it, because by laminating this resource is going to be reusable, so other people can use it as well. When I'm using it with students, I can use it in groups and sort of have one student complete the activity with a dry erase marker, erase it, wipe it off, and then go on and use it with another student, which is nice too, so that way you don't have to constantly be remaking it or printing and wasting ink and paper and all those things. So that's the other nice thing about making these. So unfortunately, my personal laminating machine is way too small to laminate this. But what I do is I'm planning to take this to work, and we have, the nice thing about our building is we have a huge laminating machine. So I'll just make sure to, you want to open it up and run it slowly through your laminating machine, and then obviously just cut off the edges. Oftentimes when I use file folders for activities like this, I do find that sometimes when you're cutting along the edge, the laminate will start to sort of peel off. So one tip or a piece of advice I have that I often use is I'll take a nice clear plastic, like a sort of heavy duty plastic, and I'll just cut some pieces and kind of line along the edge of the visual board, so that way it seals the laminate in place and it won't peel off, but it's also clear and you can still see through and complete whatever the activities might be. So I also wanted to share this resource that I just created. It's sort of an ongoing activity that I'm working on, and eventually I'll be posting this on my Teachers Pay Teachers page if anyone's interested. But one of the things that I want to try to work on with some of my students is helping them to understand that sometimes our feelings, we might be experiencing big emotions, but there might be some hidden feelings and underlying emotions that are kind of tucked away. And I want to kind of help get them to realize sometimes to maybe be a little more insightful, dig a little deeper, and kind of ask themselves, why am I feeling this? What's making me have this emotion? And maybe there's something else to it. And by having that skill, they're also learning to recognize so many things. So you're teaching them to recognize their body language. You're also teaching them to recognize their body sensations. So kind of reflecting on what their body's looking on the outside, what they're feeling on the inside, and recognizing those sensations, because we all experience triggers. It's normal. We all have big feelings. We all get mad sometimes. I don't think I know anybody who's never experienced that emotion, but it's not that there's any bad feelings, but what matters is how we react to those feelings. So this is a helpful tool because it kind of gets you to explore some of those topics with the kids and sort of start, I think it starts getting them to think about those topics as well, which is really helpful. And I think that that's an essential skill that we all need to have, because not only if we teach these students, we have them in elementary school, these skills, it's going to be, lifelong skills that will take them far, because it'll help them when they get into middle school, into high school, eventually if they choose to go on to college, or when they enter the workforce. These are skills that are going to help them kind of keep their cool, stay in control, not have big reactions to small problems, and recognize when they're starting to feel triggered, so that they can on their own identify, okay, I'm feeling upset, and maybe beneath this anger is really I'm feeling jealous, or I'm feeling betrayed or hurt, or embarrassed. So what is a coping skill that's going to help me right now? Maybe I need to take a step back. Maybe I need to take space, walk away, and this is going to help me stay calm, and it's also going to ensure that I don't get into a big altercation with somebody else. So for this activity, it's called Exploring My Emotions, and the first part of the activity is talking about our outside feelings. So eventually when I laminate this will be something that the students will be able to take a dry erase marker. They're going to be able to draw how they're feeling. So first, what we'll do is when we're discussing this activity is we'll kind of identify what's the emotion that they're feeling, and the student or myself can write that word up here on the line, and then I'll give students the dry erase markers. And it'd be helpful too if you have ones in different colors, because they can get a little bit more creative with it, but they can draw what they feel, or how they feel on the outside here. And then this can also open up dialogue for you and the student to sort of process that emotion and talk about, when you were feeling angry, what did you notice about your body? Like, what clues were telling you that you were feeling that way? So now you're kind of navigating into a deeper conversation on recognizing those body sensations. And I also included a brief list of some examples of body sensations that we might experience on the outside or the inside. And my idea for this was students could take the dry erase marker and sort of check off which ones they were feeling. And this is also helpful because maybe if you have the students keeping a journal or a book, or maybe even for your own counseling notes, you can even jot those down, and that's giving you more valuable information as well, because now you can also share that out with the classroom teacher, share it out with the parents, and now everybody's kind of on the same page. And sometimes when we know a student's trigger, it helps us sort of plan a little differently for that student, and the classroom teacher can maybe recognize, okay, this was something that triggered them. So if it's something like something with markers and the student got upset because someone took the markers, well, maybe now to avoid that, the teacher can even plan ahead and kind of think about how they're going to distribute material. So One thing I've learned over the course of the years is that you always are getting valuable information, and it's how you choose to look at it and what you choose to do with that information that can either help you or sometimes just lead to a cycle of the same problem happening over and over again. So that's my ideas for the first part. And this is like a prototype sort of thing, so I might change it or kind of alter the activity a little bit once I sort of start actually using this. But on the inside, once you open sort of the little booklet, the inside is helping students to explore their inside feelings. So once we've identified the outside feelings and what we looked at like on the outside, what we were feeling in terms of our body sensations, now we can explore sort of the underlying feelings. So let's say, you know, you had two students who got into an altercation in gym and one student was really angry. Well, maybe you can even process this with the student. Maybe if the gym teacher has something like this, or if there's a paraprofessional that works with their student and they go with them to gym, they can keep this in sort of their little bag of tricks. But what would be nice is you can use this sort of in the moment with the child as well. So this is nice, it's small, you can easily carry it with you throughout the building. The student can carry it with them throughout the building. When you're at recess, if there's an altercation that they get upset over something on the playground, you could even tell them, listen, why don't you go take space, let's kind of take a minute, reflect what happened, give them this resource, a dry erase marker. They can kind of sit off to the side, complete this activity, and then after you can process it with them, and once they're ready they can go back to finishing recess. But you know, again, like let's say it's gym and they're upset because their team lost the game and their friend was on the other team and their friend won. You could have them identify, okay, you're feeling angry, what did your body feel like? And once you have them do that, get them to dig a little deeper and talk about, well, you know, you said you were feeling angry, what was it that happened, what made you feel angry today in gym? And you know, they might share, well, I was upset because our team lost and Joey's team won. And so now you can talk a little bit more. Okay, so you were upset because Joey's team won. What about that upset you? And maybe now as you're having this conversation, you're getting them to dig a little deeper and you can talk about, you know, it sounds like maybe, do you think you were feeling a little frustrated? Maybe you're feeling a little bit defeated because your team won, and maybe even a little jealous because Joey's team won and your team lost and you really wanted to win, and we all love to win, but you know, sometimes there's going to be times where we don't win, and that's okay. And now you can kind of move into the next activity, which is talking about coping tools. So on this page, you are helping the child to identify maybe the underlying feeling behind the big emotion, and you or they can write it here. I included a list of some, you know, different examples of what some underlying feelings might be. So if they're having a hard time kind of generating it on their own, you could even review this, and this could maybe open up room for another discussion, and they can draw the inside feeling. So maybe they were sad because their team lost and their friend's team won. So, you know, initially it felt like anger, but really maybe it was sadness, and they could draw a picture of a sad face. On this page, the students now are going to explore coping tools or coping skills, toolbox strategies. There's lots of different names that we use with them, but I included just a couple examples of what coping tools might be helpful for them. So this would be a great opportunity for you to talk to the students, have them use a dry erase marker and circle a couple, 1, 2, maybe 3, or however many they feel would actually be helpful to them. And this is actually really valuable information for us as the adults, because once the student selects a coping tool that they think might be beneficial, well, now we have something to work with. So if this is, again, this is going to be something that's laminated and it won't be permanent, so you'll be kind of erasing it after the fact. But if the student has a journal, or maybe in your own counseling notes, or you could get a sticky note and write down which ones the student said, you can give it to them, have them keep it, share a copy with the teacher, share a copy with the parents, and now you're also helping to bridge the homeschool connection, and everybody's on the same page. Everybody kind of knows what's a strategy that's helpful for the student. And this is valuable information for me as well, because then maybe if I'm being called to a classroom to help with a situation or a behavioral call, now that I know this information, I might even bring this with me, or I could talk to the child and say, you know what, you mentioned one of the things that helps you is maybe taking space. Why don't you go take some space in the meditation station? Let's take 5 minutes, and then we can maybe talk when you're feeling a little better. Or here, why don't you go use a stress ball? You said that that's something that helps you, so why don't we give that a try, and maybe that's gonna help us feel a little better so we can get ourselves back to the green zone. So in our building, we use zones of regulation to kind of help students identify their feelings and pick what toolbox strategies might be helpful for them. And then on the last page, this is just sort of a little visual or kind of an explanation for the students on how emotions are sort of like icebergs. And, sometimes what we see on the top or what we see at the surface level is only a small piece of the puzzle. And there's so much more sometimes hidden underneath that we really have to get to help ourselves kind of move forward. So again, this is just a quick example, a little scenario. Sometimes what I do too is I'll make multiple copies of these. So I'll keep one for myself. I'll give the classroom teacher a copy. If it's a student that's in special education, I'll share a copy with the special education teacher. And I also like to sometimes make extra copies and send them out to the parents. So I'll call the parents and talk to them about what we worked on today, or if it's a meeting, I'll bring it with me to the meeting and kind of model and show the parent how to use it, and then I'll give them a copy. And some of the parents have really given me some positive feedback on how beneficial they found this and how helpful it is. And I think the other nice part too is it creates some consistency for the students, so everyone's using the same language, everybody's on the same page, and now we all know sort of what are the students' triggers, what does their body look like when they're feeling that way, and what sensations are they having. So maybe if their heart's racing, you might want to prompt the student, listen, why don't you go take a little walk? Why don't you go to the water fountain? Maybe that'll help you. And then when you're ready, come back. Sometimes too, for taking space, we've had students who, if they're in a hallway and their previous teacher from the school year before is in that hallway, we've set up a plan where that student can even go to that teacher's classroom and take space, take some of their schoolwork, and kind of spend 15-20 minutes completing their work, kind of de-escalating, and when they're ready, we'll transition them back into the classroom. So again, this is just one example, but I love the idea of using file folders as little visual strategy boards for my students, and I wanted to kind of share with everyone. I hope that you found this helpful, and I would love to hear what are some strategies that you guys use with your kids. What do you find works? What are some creative outlets that you like to explore with your kiddos to help them socially and emotionally? As you can tell, this is something that I'm super passionate about and I love doing, and I love getting creative. So I hope that you guys found this helpful, and if you do, send me a message or send me a comment, and I'd love to hear from you guys. And if you guys do like this and find it helpful, I'd love to make some more videos and share other ideas with you guys. So I hope everyone's having a really happy Tuesday and enjoying their summer vacation as best we can during this time that we're all going through. But again, thank you for taking the time to watch it, and I'm so grateful for some of the connections that I've formed through my Instagram page for school psychology, and hearing your guys' ideas and ways that you guys help your students has been so inspiring and so inspirational. So keep doing what you're doing, and I'm so glad that we're all in this community together, helping our kids grow and helping to hopefully create a better future for a lot of the students that we're working with. So take care, and I can't wait to hear from you guys soon.